Josh Jacobs and Bijan Robinson are must starts this week, but what do you do with Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor? We dig into and debate our Week 13 running back and quarterback rankings on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We are here for you every day, Monday through Friday, helping you win your fantasy football leagues. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, typically we wait until Wednesday to do our positional rankings, but we have a lot of games this week early on, right? We have 3 games on Thanksgiving. We have a game on Black Friday. So we wanted to start our positional rankings early. So we're going to dig into our running back and quarterbacks today. And then we will give you our wide receiver and tight end rankings on tomorrow's show to get you all ready for Thursday. Let's start right at the top here at the running backs. We have a very similar top of the list. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, no question. He's MVP, right? Joe Mixon, he's gonna bounce right back from his bad performance. He gets a great matchup against the Jaguars, no question. Devin Achane, no question. Now, there is no question about starting Josh Jacobs. Don't get me wrong. I will say though, that's the first spot here that we differ because you have him at running back 3 and I have him at running back 12. So a bit of a difference here. Why do you like Jacobs so much against the Dolphins this week, Vinny?
I mean, that's the game plan that you have to operate with against the Dolphins, right? I mean, you have to run the ball. You want to take pressure off Jordan Love. They had a big game for him last week, rolling on the 49ers. So they're feeling it. They know they're a very good rushing offense. It really helps Jordan Love where you don't have to worry about the turnovers. They should also be in control of this game at some point. I think in the second half, it's going to be tough for Tua on the road and the weather. This pass defense is pretty good. So I think Josh Jacobs will get the usual workload here and bring this one home. And he always has a chance to score multiple touchdowns, not just one. He used to struggle sometimes to get those opportunities. But this year we saw him got a receiving touchdown earlier in the season. He's now scoring again. So I know the gloss has been with Saquon Barkley for good reason and Derrick Henry. But this addition by the Packers has been right up there. I wasn't sure. But then all these things happened, right? A.J. Dillon, this was not a factor. He got hurt. Marshawn Lloyd got hurt. And then you were stuck with just Emmanuel Wilson behind Josh Jacobs. So everything kind of worked out in Jacobs' favor to be kind of the workhorse. And I do like that they're managing touches, getting Wilson in there involved so he can keep Josh Jacobs healthy. So I love it. And I think they're going to ride him more. It's November turning to December at Lambeau Field. That's when you run the ball and power home some wins.
He's no doubt a great play, right? Like you start him, there's no question about it. I still have him at running back 12. The reason I have him there instead of higher because he's finished as the running back 2 and the running back 5 the last 2 weeks. So he's been fantastic. The touchdowns have been coming like crazy, right? And the Dolphins have been actually a really good running back again, or a really good defense against running backs lately. Since week 7, allowing the 6th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs, have only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the season, in that span, and haven't allowed a rushing touchdown over the last 4 weeks. So that's my only worry. Maybe Josh Jacobs doesn't get in twice. Maybe he only gets in once, right? And that's why I'm 12 instead of 3. But he's a great play. Now, the next guy we differ on a little bit, it's Bijan Robinson, who's my running back 5 this week. And you have him down quite a bit for Bijan Robinson. You have him at running back 16 against the Chargers. I mean, prior to week 11 was bad for the entire Falcons offense, right? Before their week 12 bye. Bijan was on fire, 24 points, 21, 20, 18, 20, or 28. Yeah. And then that down game in week 11 before the bye. But I'm not actually worried about the Chargers defense. We kind of called them out for possibly being frauds before they went through the stretch between the Bengals and the Ravens. And I think we got our answer. Are they somewhat decent? Sure. But they're not what they were when they were playing the easiest teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I just like some matchups for some different guys this week. I think Brees Hall I like more than usual because he's home against Seattle. Jonathan Taylor finally has a great matchup he can take advantage of. Yeah, Alvin Kamara against the Rams, who just got run over by Saquon Barkley, Chase Brown, who's guaranteed to get a little bit more volume, Dave Montgomery. So there's some really strong guys ahead of Bijan Robinson. It's not Bijan I don't trust. It's the Falcons here. Are they going to get into a pass-happy game script against the Chargers, who should have a lot of success throwing the ball on the Falcons? Are they going to push them out of Bijan? Are they going to put in too much Tyler Algier in certain situations of pass protect? So I'm a little concerned there. I think he can get it done, but more so maybe with the catches this week, catches and yards that way. I don't think straight up running on the Chargers is going to be a game plan. I think couple reasons. I think you're going to have to keep up with Justin Herbert and Kirk Cousins are going to go back and forth. So I see a lot of passing in this game, and that's why I Bijan down. But again, his path to that production can really come through the passing game if they get him involved and they take away the deep ball from Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to have to do it through the air because I agree with you. Like they're going to have to throw in this matchup. We both like Justin Herbert. Spoiler alert for when we get to the quarterback section. But he should get it done though as a receiver, and hopefully he can get into the end zone against them. Now we have to figure out what to do with Christian McCaffrey, right? And unfortunately, we have to rank him, which was very hard this week. You have him as top 10 still. You're sticking with him. You have him at running back 9, going to Buffalo. I did move him down to running back 14. This may be the lowest I've ever had him ranked in 5 years that he's been healthy. I'm just worried that this offense is falling apart. I don't know about Purdy's shoulder. If Purdy does end up playing, maybe I move him up a bit. But the Bills are a tougher run defense. They can be thrown on to the running back. So CMC should get his targets and receptions. But if it's Brandon Allen throwing him the ball, I don't really care.
Yeah, I just look at that aspect. The Bills are really bad at covering backs out of the backfield, and this is the ultimate guy who does that. So I think that's got to be the 49ers offense too. Like if Debo's covered up, they can't push the ball downfield with the Bills pass rush. It's going to be check down city. It could be like what we saw with Alvin Kamara last year, points with Derek Carr, just throwing as an extension of the running game because that's all they can do because they can't get the ball downfield. And I'm also hoping the Bills build a lead here. So there's a lot of checkdowns, and the 49ers are just trailing the entire maybe second half where it's a lot of Christian McCaffrey dump off. So that's my hope. That's why I kept from pushing him even further down because the Bills have just been so bad covering backs anywhere from like a Justice Hill type to just the average kind of receiving back. So they've really, really struggled in that capacity. And I know they'll probably have that as a point of emphasis, but again, McCaffrey is the matchup nightmare when it comes to all those type of guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good. If Brock Purdy's back, I will move him up a bit.
Yeah.
I will say Matt Milano might be coming back for the Bills this week.
Yeah.
That would be a huge upgrade for them at linebacker if he's able to come back and be fully healthy. I guess we don't really know, how great he will be in his first game back. Some other guys we don't need to hit on. You're playing them without question. Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, even Kyron Williams came back to life last week. Obviously, you're playing him. Now, I wanted to discuss Chase Brown only for the fact that obviously you're playing him, but for the fact that I have him so high. I'm at running back 9 against the Steelers. I know some people see Steelers and think, oh no, what a tough matchup. It's not against the run. I mean, Nick Chubb just had a huge game against them, but they've been allowing a lot of fantasy points to running backs. You also like Chase Brown this week at 15, but I mean, he's been on fire. The running back 5, 3, and 10 in the 3 games played without Zach Moss. Like he's getting all the work. And when he struggles on the ground, then they just pass to him. Right. He's getting so many targets if they do struggle to run the ball. So either way, he's going to get his points, whether it be through the air or on the ground, and he gets all the goal line opportunities. So Chase Brown is going to stay in my top 10 until he proves otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of matchups for guys I like above. We'll talk about one in a moment. But when you have Chase Brown, I mean, he's just an automatic play because of the volume at this point. And he reminds me a lot of when we had that transition to Austin Eckler. Remember in Los Angeles / San Diego when they were looking at Melvin Gordon, and there was like this guy Eckler behind him is pretty good. It's kind of happened here as they moved on from Mixon. Zach Moss has got hurt. Chase Brown reminds me of that type of player, and he's going to just keep doing things in the red zone and in the passing game where he's a must play every week. Again, in terms of what he'll do every week, there might be a little bit of difference, but I think the volume is too great, and he's too integral to what they're doing offensively at this point.
He really is. And he's looking pretty good overall. He looks like a good weapon. Yeah. Now, Jonathan Taylor is not looking good whatsoever. And it's been 4 straight weeks where you've been disappointed by his performance. And he gets the Patriots. I guess it's an easier matchup for running backs, but I still don't feel great about it for Jonathan Taylor. I'm at running back 18. You still have him in the top 12 at RB 12.
Yeah, I thought about dropping him down this week, but then I thought about, some of these matchups he's had of late, keep in mind, he's faced the Texans twice. That's been tough against the run. Then he gets the Lions. It seems like there's just a lot of tough defenses on the schedule. Finally, it's the Patriots, who are very vulnerable. We know that in everything they do. So I feel like there's going to be some breathing room. It's also going to be in New England, where the weather could be a factor here. So the biggest thing with Jonathan Taylor is they don't stick with him and they don't throw to him, which is silly to me. Like, Shane Steichen needs to get him more involved to help Anthony Richardson. It's just ridiculous. And maybe it'll happen this week because Josh Downs is a little bit banged up. He's considered week to week. So if he doesn't go, then they'll need maybe Taylor to be used finally in the passing game. And they're reluctant to do that, but Taylor's proved to do that before. Again, I don't see the Patriots running away from the Colts. If I see one team blowing out the other, it would be the Colts. So that would be good news for Jonathan Taylor, where he's getting actually fed the ball and they're not trailing big, because that's been a lot of the issue. And I hate players like that are really talented and the team just says, oh, we're behind, so we're not going to use them. Don't do that. If he's your most talented player, get him on the field or make it happen. But Shane Steichen's been really fickle with him. This is just holding out hope that the nature of the game flow will just say, Steichen, hand over the ball to this guy and try to win a game.
Yeah, and he really needs a touchdown. Hasn't scored a rushing touchdown in any of the last 4 games. Get him into the end zone, please. I need Jonathan Taylor to score some points. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break and then dig into the rest of our running backs. One guy I haven't mentioned yet, but because he's not normally mentioned at this time, but it's Bucky Irving, and he's coming up real soon because I have him ranked real high. We'll get into that in just a moment. Are you missing someone this holiday season and want them to be a part of your festivities from afar? We've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. You get to upload thousands of photos from your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. You can set up the whole frame within 60 seconds, and it's really seamless sharing. You get to invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app, or you can email photos, no account or subscription needed. You get to add photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a matter of like a tap on your phone. You get to send photos to whoever has this frame. So if your parents have the frame, if your sister or whatever, you take a picture, you think it's cool, you could just tap it over to them and it just shows up on their frame if it's like right in their living room, and then they get to see what you're doing. And it's so fun. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop so they'll feel so much more connected to you. It's a top-rated brand and over 1 million happy customers. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and it's available in 30 countries. It's been even recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and more. So there's a special offer right now for our listeners. You get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's skylightframe.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL.
This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. Get ready to tackle a big weekend here. It's week 13. We have Thanksgiving, triple header, all that good stuff. And we're thankful that FanDuel is behind us on Locked On, because right now, new customers there that are listeners to the show can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. If you're tracking what's going on between the Bears and Lions, Giants and Cowboys, all the way through Packers, Dolphins, you can be right there. And when you get a hunch in the middle of any of those games, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's only at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook sponsor of the NFL. All right, Michelle, let's continue the show. Let's get into your Bucky Irving conversation here. You have an RB13. I have a little bit more conservative RB25. The only reason I did that is that he is still sharing the backfield. Now, Bucky Irving is a special back. We know that, but there's no problems with this matchup. They're getting the Panthers on the road. I would expect all the Buccaneers running backs, not named Sean Tucker, hopefully, to get the job done between him and Rachaad White.
Yeah, I mean, he's been killing it on the ground. He gets pretty much all the red zone carries. He was getting all the goal line carries. Sean Tucker ended up getting a couple in this last game, but then he fumbled the ball on one of them. So I feel like maybe now they're like, you know what, let's go back to Irving. So that might be a good thing. And then all of a sudden he's getting the targets as well. So you put all those together. Bucky Irving is clearly the most talented running back in this backfield in a fantastic matchup. That's why I have him running back 13. Honestly, I should maybe have him higher. The last 2 games, he's finished as running back 3 and running back 7. So he has been killing it. That's why I love him this week. Now, Nick Chubb, on the other hand, I don't love as much. And you don't either. So he has a really great game against the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. Puts up 18.5 fantasy points because he scores 2 rushing touchdowns. He has 20 carries, but only 59 rushing yards. I have him all the way down at running back 29 and you or at running back 30, and you have him at running back 29 against the Broncos. It's just not a great matchup, but I don't expect him to score 2 rushing touchdowns again.
Yeah, it's going to be hard in general to move the ball in the Broncos for the Browns with Jameis Winston. They're just a very tough pass defense. They'll also be at home on Monday night, so they'll be charged up and be all over the field flying around. They usually will come out and stop the run well when you have that scenario. So Nick Chubb, pretty much you have to treat him as a flex play. Hope you get a touchdown out of him. That's it. You're not just saying Nick Chubb of old is back after 2 touchdowns and 20 touches last week in the running game. You're just not going to do that. So again, be careful with Nick Chubb. Don't go chase those points. If you've got someone steadier that's going to touch the ball, you got to go with that player. So debating between a Rhamondre Stevenson or Tyrone Tracy, who have good matchups this week, just go there. Just don't try to extend yourself with Nick Chubb. But if you're desperate, which you could be, and no teams are on a bye this week, so that could change your thinking, then you can play Nick Chubb as a flex, but only as a flex. I don't like him as an RB2 at all this week.
No, the Broncos have given up 5 rushing touchdowns to running backs all season. 2 of them came from Derrick Henry in the same game. We know Nick Chubb's not at all involved as a receiver. He has 7 receiving yards through his 5 games played. And he has yet to put up 60 rushing yards on the ground. He's touchdown or bust, and this is a hard matchup to get a touchdown. So low end, don't expect much if you do play him. If you get a touchdown, be happy. Now let's talk about these other 3 guys who have been disappointing. You got Kareem Hunt against the Raiders. He hasn't been super disappointing, but not what you were getting when he first came onto this Chiefs team. And then Isaiah Pacheco, you would think he'd be back this week. We thought he would be last week. So rank Kareem Hunt against Najee Harris against the Bengals or Rhamondre Stevenson against the Colts.
Yeah, if I'd known for sure that Rhamondre Stevenson was getting lead to value, I would go there. But I kind of like Kareem Hunt, even with Pacheco back, because the one thing I keep hearing from Patrick Mahomes, they're tired of these close games. They want to bust it open and blow someone out. Who better to do that than your hated rival, the Raiders, coming in on Black Friday? So I could see the Chiefs totally pouring it on, and I'm not worried about Pacheco and his return because they might hold him out a week, right? It's a shorter week. They could just say, hey, it's the Raiders. We can run on them with Kareem Hunt, whatever. They might think that err the side of caution for the stretch run because we know the Chiefs are thinking about the big picture, not just what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. So something to look at there with Hunt and Pacheco. And Stevenson, again, he might be splitting a bit with Gibson. The matchup is very good against the Colts. They could not stop the Lions last week, but the Patriots are not the Lions, so keep that in mind. But then Harris has to split with Warren. So it's very close to me, but I think all 3 are very playable based on the matchup. So if you've got these guys and one has to drop in the flex, that's fine. I would 100% do that.
Yeah, I think I go Rhamondre Stevenson first and hope his workload comes back. I know it was down for 1 week, but he was getting 20 plus touches a game for like a straight month. So I'm going to go Stevenson again in a great matchup. Then I'm actually going to go Najee against the Bengals and then Kareem Hunt last. I do think like Isaiah Pacheco is going to come back. He's going to steal a good amount of work. Hunt has not been nearly as effective. As he has been. So I would go with him last. I would go with Pacheco over all of these guys, honestly. But Rhamondre Stevenson first, then Najee, then Kareem Hunt. Now that we have two running backs in the same game that are kind of ranked around the same area. You got Tyrone Tracy Jr., who was doing great, but then they moved to, Tommy DeVito, and that offense was atrocious and couldn't move the ball at all. He still finished as a running back 20 on the week, though. Or Rico Dowdle, who finally was handed over the keys in the backfield and finished as a running back 16 this past week. They play in the same game. Which guy are you going with?
I'm going with Tracy. I don't really trust the Cowboys running game. I think this is not a very good matchup for them actually up front. So this is going to be a problem a little bit with those Giants guys. I know they've struggled against the run, but the Cowboys offensive line doesn't really match up all that well. The other thing is the Giants don't have to worry about is the deep ball as much for the Cowboys. It's a lot of check down city with Cooper Rush. They've been trying to just be more compressed, right, with that offense. So I think the Commanders kind of wore down a bit in that game. It was back and forth and all that. So I would expect this is a tough thing, right? When you turn around and play on Thursday, it's hard to give that person the same workload and all that. And people kind of manage that a little bit. But if I was going to say a guy that's been more consistent with his body work and has the better matchup, I think I go with Tracy overall because he can also do a little bit more damage as a pass catcher this week.
He definitely. I mean, both of them can be used as a pass catcher. The reason they're very close for me, but I do feel a little bit more confident in Dowdle not like putting up a terrible game, right? Because I don't know if I can trust this Giants offense with Tommy DeVito. Tracy only got 9 carries this last game because of how bad it was. Now, I don't expect him to get blown out like they did against the Buccaneers, but I mean, we just saw the Cowboys actually have a pretty good offensive game plan for the Commanders. So who knows? And Dowdle gets 19 carries in the game where they say they're going to turn the backfield over to him. He does get the targets. So I think I lean Dowdle a little bit, but I think both are playable, just lower running back to flex plays. Now, what about Gus Edwards here for our final running back discussion? J.K. Dobbins, man, I mean, he was doing so well, but he leaves last night's game with a knee injury. We don't know what it is yet. We don't know how long he'll be out, if he'll be out at all. But if he is out, do you start Gus Edwards against the Falcons in Week 13?
Yeah, if you're sure that Gus Edwards is going to get the bulk of everything, but they also have Hassan Haskins they're sitting on as well. If Gus Edwards is just used to run and they don't throw to him, and then Hassan Haskins comes into the goal line, what is the value of Gus Edwards? And the Falcons have actually been pretty good against the run. If you look at their numbers, a lot easier to pass on the Falcons. Their pass defense is in shambles. They don't have much of a rush. Their secondary at the corners this week. They're really good at safety, but they stink at the corners. So the best way to beat the Falcons, and the Chargers are a very adjustable offense, is to throw on them quite a bit. If Dobbins is hurt, I don't think they're going to just say, okay, Gus Edwards get 20 carries, right? They'll just say, Justin Herbert, we're going to put the game in your hands and just throw it, and we can do this because this is the weakness of the Falcons. So not interested. Really, I don't think the matchup is great for Dobbins either. Like if he's playing, it's not all that great, and he needs a touchdown, I think, to make it worth it. So if that's the case, I can't extend Edwards this week.
I'm with you. I'm like, it's just so much easier to pass on the Falcons than it is to run. So you would expect that this is going to lean on Justin Herbert. So again, It's kind of like Nick Chubb. You're really hoping for that rushing touchdown. If you don't get it, you're going to be disappointed. I would, though, rather start Gus Edwards than Nick Chubb if J.K. Dobbins misses. Are you with me?
I think I still would go Nick Chubb because he's Nick Chubb. Yeah, I mean, if they're the same type of player, I'm going to take the better player. I think Nick Chubb is the better player. And the Broncos, if they're going to give up anything, it's going to be more so on the ground this week.
Okay, I think that's fair. We are going to now transition into our quarterbacks. We have some tough decisions to make with Joe Burrow in a tough matchup. Brock Purdy, is he going to come back, and do we trust him? Lots to discuss. We'll get into that right after a quick break. History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses. Some of these courses, including but not limited to, are Constitution 101, the meaning and the history of the Constitution, Introduction to the Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockdown to register. Hillsdale.edu/lockdown. All right, we have a my camera went away from me here. We have very, very similar top of our quarterback rankings. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert is actually both of our quarterback 4s. Jaden Daniels, I have him at 6, you have him at 5. But the one guy that's not in our top 6 for both of us, it's Joe Burrow. He's our quarterback 7. Now, are we so worried about him against the Steelers? I don't know if I am. I think that's why he's still my quarterback 7, because he's been quarterback 1, 1, and 3. So moving him down a bit with this matchup. But how worried are you overall?
I'm not too worried because they have to win and they're going to be motivated. And he's just played well, and he has a good history playing in the division as well. I mean, he just figures it out, and they're going to have too many good matchups across the board now with having the bye. So we know Jamar Chase and Higgins will be both fully healthy together for the first time in a while. Where no lingering issues there. So when those two guys are together, he can produce big time, and we know that. But the reason I have him a little lower, I think you look at the Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson situation, that's probably going to be a high-scoring affair against each other. You look at Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield, really fantastic matchups for them this week to kind of push their teams ahead. So those guys are ahead. We talked about Herbert having that. Jane Daniels coming off a really great game and gets the Titans at home. So that's the only reason I have him down here. But I think some of those guys have higher upside. Definitely Hurts and Jackson lead that list. Of course, Josh Allen always carries big-time upside. But, yeah, even with the worry, I mean, the Steelers, if it was any other quarterback, we'd probably I don't want to go there. But Joe Burrow, we still firmly want to start this week in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been relying on him, like if you have him, you're just starting him, right?
Yeah.
It might not be his biggest week, but he's been on fire. And that's the same thing with Baker Mayfield. If you've been relying on him, like it's been not as great as it was to start the year, but against this Panthers defense. And what's nice now is that the Panthers have somehow started to score some points to be able to keep up in matchups, which should mean Baker actually has to throw more, which would be great for him. No doubt. Obviously, we're a little bit different on Mahomes because I always have him ranked lower than you do, but he still has a great matchup. This is definitely a week that you can play him. You have him all the way at your running back or quarterback 6 this week. I have him at 12, but yeah, if you roster him, you play him. Now, one guy that it has been up and down this year and, is always a question mark to start. It's rookie quarterback Bo Nix, possibly offensive rookie of the year at this point with Jaden Daniels coming down a little bit. But I have Bo Nix at quarterback 8. You have him at quarterback 9 at home against the Browns. It's a good matchup. And Bo Nix, his last 4 home games have been 30 points, 29 points, 23 points, and 21 points. He scores a lot of points at home.
Yeah, he's a classic compiler. He runs when he needs to do that, and he just throws to whoever. And there's a lot of deep threats on this team. And Cortland Sutton has looked good, really good. I mean, we haven't seen him look this good in a long time. So he's acting like a number one. They're making some other big plays. I mean, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, these guys are getting randomly involved to create some matchups and throw it downfield. And we've talked about a lot. The Browns give up a lot of plays downfield in the passing game, and Bo Nix has slowly become more aggressive, right? As we've seen, that's why the numbers are going up, and maybe his rushing is going down, but his passing has been a lot better. The only reason I have him not any higher than 9 is I don't know what he's going to have to do. If the defense dominates and Jameis Winston has a hard time on Monday night, I mean, he's going to have to maybe step off the gas at some point.
Well, we know they don't have a run game, so can they step off the gas?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like the running game is totally unpredictable and useless. Almost the wide receivers beyond Sutton and Bailey are not useful at all because you don't know where he's going to go with the ball other than those two guys and a tight end. Yeah, forget it. And the running back. So, I mean, really Bo Nix has to be the centerpiece of this offense, and he's going to keep producing at home. He's great. He was great on the road last week against the Raiders. And you're right. I mean, we're going to maybe talk about him as the fantasy rookie of the year too, because he kind of is creeping up where he could be a weekly start here down the stretch. That's how good it's been going for Bo Nix of late.
Yeah, especially at home. If he continues this up, we're going to be starting him at home always. Now, I actually think we both have Bo Nix ranked higher than Kyler Murray. I am higher on Kyler than you are. I'm at 9. You haven't done at 17. I think if you want Kyler's good games, you just kind of have to just keep starting him and deal with the bad games as well. But this week, if you have Bo Nix and Kyler, then yeah, sure, start Bo Nix. But unless you have one of those great other options, I'm still rolling with Kyler Murray. Now, we also agree on another quarterback, which we don't typically have this high. It's CJ Stroud. We have him at quarterback 10, and he gets the Jaguars. And that's pretty much why we have him this high, right? I will say he finished his quarterback 12 last week, his best finish in a long time. It's because he has Nico Collins, right? He completed that long touchdown to Nico Collins. That clearly helps him. But the Jaguars have just given up so many points to every quarterback. Jared Goff, 35 points. Josh Allen, 31. Jalen Hurts, 30. Caleb Williams, 29. Joe Flacco, 27. CJ Stroud already played him, had 24 points in that game. Drake May, 21 points. If Stroud can't do it in this game, why are we even rostering him?
Yeah, and when I look at Stroud, I mean, he needs somebody to push him, and the Titans did push him. They pushed him to the point of beating the Texans last week. So maybe the Jaguars coming out of bye will be a little bit inspired at the bottom of their division and try to get up for a division foe at home and play a little bit better. That'll be great, too, because that'll push CJ Stroud to throw. And we also saw a clunker from Joe Mixon. Now, we think Mixon can be good this week, and that'll help Stroud with the numbers and just maybe – being a back and forth game a little bit more. But yeah, the matchups are just too good for Collins, for his other receivers, everyone really, Dalton Schultz as well. So I'm not saying you play those guys individually, but it all lines up well for Stroud. Now, this is not a week where there's any quarterbacks off. So this also might be, hey, play safe with Brock Purdy, given all these other quarterbacks have good matchups here. The elbow injury is tough. Then he has to go on the road Sunday night against the Bills defense. And Deebo Samuel not producing. He needs a lot of Juwan Jennings and George Kittle to get it done. I don't know. I don't know if I could go with Brock Purdy this week, especially because you have to wait also to see what his status might be on Sunday night.
Yeah, Brock Purdy is going to be a tricky one to figure out because I feel like, I mean, if he can play, he's going to play. And if he doesn't, then maybe he might be done for the year because,
yeah,
I mean, this is it for the 49ers season. They really, really need this win in a game that they don't even have a chance if they start Brandon Allen. But, tough Bills defense, especially in Buffalo. Brock Purdy in not at home and out in colder weather. Like I can't imagine that's going to be great. So yeah, you start your Bo Nix, but I will ask, there's some other guys we like this week. Would you also be starting them over Brock Purdy? So Will Levis, I have a quarterback 15. It's not like it's super high, but like you said, there's no team on bye. So that's still really high for Will Levis. Against the Commanders, they've been giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks. Even Cooper Rush and Russell Wilson the last few weeks have had 18 plus point games. So I do think Will Levis has looked much better and he can get it done. Or Trevor Lawrence, who we both actually agree on this week. We both have him as our quarterback 16, or we both have him top 16. You have him one spot higher than I do. Against the Texans, who the Texans pass defense just looks like it's just gone, right? And now Jalen Petre's dealing with a multi-week injury. That's a huge loss for that Texans secondary. So would you go with Will Levis and Trevor Lawrence over Brock Purdy?
Oh, that's hard. I think I would actually take Lawrence because I actually like the matchup a little bit better at home. I don't like to play younger quarterbacks on the road in general. The Commanders should be a little bit mad at this point. I mean, they've been losing some games. Their defense can go after it a little bit. So, again, Levis just comes with a little bit more volatility, strangely, because Lawrence has been totally volatile. But I think after a bye, and I think it kind of helps that it's just Brian Thomas Jr. and Evan Ingram. We're not trying to mess with other dudes. Like, he has to throw to these guys quite a bit. And Thomas can kill the secondary. So that's what I'm counting on. A big game from Thomas with a big game from Ingram being the ticket here, and maybe even a negative game script in that, where he's going to have to toss quite a bit in this one, where I could see the Commanders making that a bit of an ugly, grinding type game with the Titans, where I think Jaguars, Texans is a better shot to have both quarterbacks go off.
I can't believe I'm with you with the Trevor Lawrence, but I think he's a really solid play. And I think I'd go with both Levis and Lawrence over Brock Purdy this week. And now lastly, Tua. I would definitely go with Levis and Lawrence over Tua, which might be crazy to say because he's had 2 really great weeks. Those were both at home. I don't like, he's never been a quarterback that's been great on the road. I know he had an okay fantasy day in Buffalo a few weeks ago, but I don't trust him to go to the Packers, to go to Green Bay, and to have a good game. I can't trust Tua in cold weather.
Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the mood darkening here as we talk about Tua. It's cold outside. It gets darker faster. So that's what's happening here. But Tua, it is going to be dark for him and cold in Lambeau Field. It's Thanksgiving night. Again, the matchups the last 3 weeks have been off the charts good, and also good weather, right? He had a dome game against the Rams, 2 home games against the Raiders and Patriots. Miami is a lot different than going to Green Bay. It's basically December. Let's just call it that. I mean, I know it's late November, but it's a December game for the Dolphins. So I think the Dolphins are going to have a little bit of wake-up call. I think their best bet is to run Devin Achane. We'll look at the weather. It could be pretty ugly up there, so watch that in all these games as well, as we saw that kind of happen a little bit with the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game. You might have it in Green Bay. You could have it in Buffalo. So these weather games could start to creep in and make us not like the quarterbacks as much, especially if they're facing a turnover ability defense the way the Packers are on the road.
Now, one guy we didn't talk about because you don't have to, Josh Allen, he's always Superman, but in December, he is stupid good. He has like 15 more touchdowns than any other quarterback in the month of December and January and just regular season games over the last few years. He's dominant in cold weather. So this is Josh Allen's time. This is like, just, roll with him. He's going to be fantastic. But that is it for our running back and quarterback rankings. We will get to our wide receiver and tight ends tomorrow. Everyone, please give us that like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us the like on your podcast app. Leave us a review. We hope you all have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.